is absolutely up for robust debate, and that's absolutely fine, but the debate has to be based on the facts, and attacks on his record as the Director of Public Prosecutions, when he has done so much in terms of being the first prosecution of a grooming gang, calling repeatedly for mandatory reporting of abuse cases, all of which was ignored, unfortunately, over the last 14 years.
If someone, politician or otherwise, is calling for a national independent inquiry now, are they jumping on the far-right bandwagon?
I think we've got the Alexis J report with a set of very solid recommendations.
Are people jumping on the far-right bandwagon if they want a national independent inquiry?
I think those people need to explain why we need another review and inquiry. We've had the local reviews and inquiries, we've had the J reviews and inquiries. Let's get on and implement those. Of course, we monitor, we're vigilant. If we see that the implementation of those measures is not working for some reason, then okay, yeah, we may need to go back to the drawing board, but let's get on with what's on the table. And it's frankly shameful that those recommendations have been there since 2022 and they've never been implemented.
We've spoken to a victim today who says she was sexually exploited as a teenager in Telford. She wants a national inquiry because she believes it will hold people accountable in the way previous inquiries haven't. Is she jumping on the far-right bandwagon?
I think that the J review was very clear that they will put institutions in place, Child Protection Authority.
You're ignoring my question again.
Those institutions will, I believe, deliver on what that young person, that victim of abuse, is calling for. I believe that the J inquiry, we believe as a government, they will deliver on what is needed.
Is she jumping on the far-right bandwagon?
Then of course we need to be very vigilant and make sure that we're putting the measures in place that work. Look,
is she jumping on the far-right bandwagon, yes or no?
It's heartbreaking to see these awful, sickening cases of abuse. We've got to take rapid action to stop them, to have justice and accountability for people.
I'm not sure why
like
you can't answer my question.
I think that people who are victims of this abuse are well within their rights to call for all of the measures that need to be taken.
So she's not jumping on a far-right bandwagon?
It's our job as a government. I don't think that that's what the Prime Minister was saying. I think the Prime Minister was saying...
Oh, I've got the quote here. What I won't tolerate is politicians jumping on the bandwagon when those politicians sat in government for 14 long years tweeting and talking but not doing anything about it. Now, so desperate for attention, they're amplifying what the far-right is saying. That was about politicians. I'm asking you about a victim.
The politicians are being opportunistic when they have completely failed to take action on this issue and are now calling for it all to go back to the drawing board, back to square one, to have another review. That feels to me like political point scoring. So, I think that's very different to the case that you've mentioned, because that young person was not in a position of responsibility, wasn't in government to take the decisions that should have been taken.
So it's Kemi Badenoch who's jumping on the far-right bandwagon then?
That's what it looks like to me.
The Prime Minister has ruled out a national public inquiry. The government, according to Sky News, has launched 74 reviews in your first 6 months, including repeating reviews that have been done before, like on junk food advertising and on social care. Is a grooming inquiry the only one you won't do?
But we have a review. We have the J report, and the J report has got
We've had a social care review. You're doing another one?
It's got 20 very solid recommendations that need to be delivered. It's completely... it's a false analogy to compare it with the social care review, because what we don't have on social care is a consensus around how to fix our adult social care.
Well, there isn't a consensus on how to support women and girls in the future when it comes to child sexual exploitation, as we've seen from the debate in the last few days.
Well, I haven't heard anybody saying that we shouldn't implement the 20 recommendations of the J review. What we've seen is a complete failure of the previous government to actually do anything about it.
So there's no merit in looking in detail about whether the ethnicity of the perpetrators, often men of Pakistani heritage, led the authorities to back off investigating them for fear of being called racist?
I think that the J recommendations put in place institutions and systems and processes that will fix the entire system, and that is the most important. I think we need to see this in the round as a failing of our institutions, and those measures are about building the institutional capability to make sure that these appalling cases are never seen again.
How How worried is the Prime Minister about Jess Phillips' safety right now?
I'm sure that he's worried. I'm sure that he's concerned. I think we all are. I think we've seen how dangerous our politics can become when it is deeply polarised, and when, I'm afraid, certain people use language that whips up violent sentiment, and that can lead to very, very tragic consequences. So I think we're all worried about it. We're worried about every day we go into that chamber and we see the plaque on the wall to Jo Cox. I shared an office with her, and it's something that we think about a lot.
Finally, the Home Secretary announced in the Commons this evening a new Victims and Survivors panel on child sexual exploitation, and that grooming would be an aggravating factor when it comes to sentencing and other accelerated action. Is that because of Elon Musk?
I think those are absolutely the right measures to be taking. I think the Home Secretary's building on the J review as well.
But today, she announced it tonight.
I don't think it's right to say it's just because of Elon Musk.
But in part because of what he's been raising.
You know, I think what matters is that the outcomes that we put in place
are
right
for
the victims, that we have accountability and justice in the system. And the reality is that this is a massively important political issue. It's a massively important issue in terms of our society and how it works in terms of our communities.
But you're not saying it's just a coincidence that Yvette Cooper announced these things this evening,
look,
are you?
No, I think that I think the government wanted to send a very clear message, which is that this matter is being given our urgent attention.
But only because of Elon Musk's tweets.
At pace to make it happen. And we can speculate about the whys and wherefores of what's happening today.
I don't want to speculate. I'm asking you, you're a minister in the government.
I think that the government is taking rapid action, and the political salience of this issue is sharp, it's acute.
Why
and
is it sharp and acute now?
Well, it has been the whole time. I mean, it's certainly sharp and acute for the victims. And, you know, we've got to do whatever it takes to eradicate this from our society and to make sure that we have a system in place that is fit for purpose. And that is what the Home Secretary set out today.